I'm pale, but I'm not that pale, my goodness. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Vic, and for today's video, I'm going to be reviewing Woobles Learn to Crochet kits. So for those who do not know, the Woobles is a brand that sprung up, I think, through COVID, and basically it is a company that produces these little kits which have everything you need to start your own little crochet plushie. I made this one already. This is Fred the dinosaur. I think he's turned out pretty cute. Pretty much exactly how he's supposed to look. I'm going to be talking about these in regards to accessibility and ease of the hobby for someone who has never ever touched a crochet hook in their entire life. That would be me. And I'm going to be talking about value for money and affordability. Those are really the two things that I think are the most important in regards to a review of a product like these. I know a very common criticism of these kits is that they're expensive and you can get the materials they include much cheaper elsewhere and find free patterns online. That's a very valid critique, and I will get to that when I talk about the affordability and value for money side of things, but these kits are not designed for people who know how to do that. These kits, of which I've bought many, let's face it. I also have these three. I'll show you in a minute. These kits are designed primarily for people who have no idea what they're doing and for whom researching it themselves or trying to figure out what they need to be doing themselves is a very daunting and overwhelming task that makes them not engage with the craft. Because as someone who has never done it before, it is a very overwhelming and confusing type of activity to try and understand. There's so many things you need to know. Your width of your crochet hook versus the width of your yarn, how much yarn you need for your patterns, how do you start a pattern, how do you read a pattern, what kind of yarn do you want to be using, what kind of hook do you want to be using, what are you even wanting to make, and how do you know how big it's going to be? There are all of these questions that flood the mind of someone who thinks, hey, crocheting looks interesting, and then they just don't do it because that is too much to try and figure out on the limited time, effort, and energy that we can put into these things in this day and age of a cost of living crisis. That being said, it is a cost of living crisis, so something that costs a bit much is actually taking it away from people who want to start at an entry level and can only afford entry-level basic stuff. Now that being said, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. What even is a Woobles kit? That's a great question. I'm going to show you the ones that I have, and then we'll unbox one together just so I can show you everything that they come with. I managed to find these for sale half price at a store that was closing down here in New Zealand, so they were selling everything half price. This means that I did not have to pay as much as these are retailing for, which is why I have 4 of them. I wouldn't have even bought one of them if they were full price, I have to admit, despite how much I wanted to give these a go. But I do have Fred the dinosaur. This one I've already opened and completed. It took me about 3 days of working on it on and off around other things I was doing. I also picked up Felix the fox, Walter the bear, which looks like it's probably the simplest one of the ones that I've bought, and Zoe the flamingo, which looks like it's going to be the most complicated. They do all advertise as being for beginners on the front of the packaging, so I don't think any of them is going to be markedly more difficult than the others. But I'm just aware this creates a lot more shapes and like odd little wings and things that go on compared to this bear, which is really just a ball with a little cup for its muzzle and 2 little ears. I don't think there's going to be a lot different between these two in terms of complexity, but I do think this one's probably going to be easier. I started with Fred the dinosaur because I bought this one before I bought the other ones, and then I went back and grabbed those 3 while they still had stock while that store was closing down, because boy howdy, stock do be flying out the door. Fred the dinosaur, ladies and gentlemen, he's a little bit derpy, he's a little bit off, but he is gorgeous and I love him, and I think we should all love him because he is beautiful and he deserves love. But we're gonna open one of these kits together, so the next one I'm gonna make is probably going to be Walter the bear, so we'll open this together. So you'll find inside the kit there is a ball of yarn, in this case it's brown, and inside of that there is actually this little piece that's already been started for you. This is because all crochet pieces kind of start with what they call a magic circle, and that's a bit tricky to figure out how to do. So they get you started on your very first piece just so you don't have to deal with that right off the bat. And I actually really appreciated that as someone who has never done this before. It was nice to know that at the very least I was starting in the right place as opposed to really struggling to get going and losing steam and giving up. Also, they do teach you at a later point in the tutorials how to do a magic circle because you do have to create other pieces. That's why we have this other color yarn, this kind of beigey color. It's because we need that for the face and inside the ears, and so we will have to create our own magic circles for the face and the ears. So we will eventually learn that skill, but they know it's quite a challenging one right off the bat for people and it's a bit daunting, so they just, you know, they get us started, they do it a bit easier for us, and I really appreciate that. Also included we have the crochet hook because, you know, the crochet hook is kind of the part you need the most other than the yarn. They're kind of the two most important things. I will say Woobles yarn is a bit different to typical yarn. Sorry, it's weird for me to be calling it yarn. Here in New Zealand we would just refer to it all as wool. That's just what we call it here, but I will call it what they do, which is yarn. They have their own special, like, proprietary blend of material or whatever that they use for their wool that is supposed to make it less prone to splitting with the hook and everything, and easier to see your stitches with. I have never crocheted with anything else. I have knitted though, and compared to knitting with like typical stuff you'd be able to pick up at a craft store, I do think this is very easy to see your stitching, and also, yeah, I didn't find myself stabbing through it very easily at any point. It comes with this whole piece of stuffing, which looks really small until you open it and it just expands out in front of your face and it's huge. It's definitely more than you need for the piece that you're making. And same with the yarn, you don't have to worry about running out of materials while you're working on this. They definitely provide you with enough stuff to have wiggle room or to have done something kind of wrong and ended up using more. It's gonna be fine. And then inside this little paper envelope thing, we have these plastic safety eyes. There's also a piece of black yarn in case you want to use that for the eyes instead. And then also in here is a yarn needle. It's a nice metal one. I thought that as well about the crochet hook when I opened it. They very easily could have put plastic materials in here and just that was what we would have to deal with, but that's not the case. They gave us all the things we need in nice, sturdy, quality materials, so these things are going to outlast this kit and you can keep using them for other projects. And then on this card, I'm not going to flip it over, but on the back there is a QR code and a link and a password to the online step-by-step instruction videos, as well as the online pattern. I really appreciated this part of the Woobles kit. I didn't mention this before. They do have very detailed online step-by-step instructions into how to create what you're working on, and they are so helpful. I found them incredibly necessary when working on Fred here because they show you exactly what to do in a very clear way with very nice spoken directions as well as the visual description, and oftentimes they've also got it written in text so you can kind of choose which way is better for you. You can rewatch the video 100,000 times if you want to. It's broken up into very small segments. Each video is about 20 seconds long, which sometimes is a bit annoying because you have to stop what you're doing to skip to the next video, but at the same time I appreciate that I'm not trying to find the last piece of instruction that I was given in a 10-minute chunk. It does make it a lot easier. A lot of what you're paying for with a Woobles kit is this kind of handheld guidance through the process of creating your little creature. I acknowledge that. I think that it is a huge benefit to these kits that they do it that way. It's a lot easier to follow than pictorial instructions or just written instructions, especially when it comes to things you've never done before. If you don't know what a single crochet stitch is, someone telling you to go through, go around, pull back through, like, you're gonna get confused because there are so many points in which you have to know where you are in regards to your piece and all of the threads that you're working with, and it gets very confusing when you don't know what you're doing yet. And you can always just not watch the videos and just look at the pattern. If you are familiar with crochet stitches and you don't want to go through that, you can pick and choose which videos you want to watch if there's a particular step you think you need help with. And something I didn't utilize but that they do offer is direct customer support. You can email them. I think you can text them as well. I don't know if that works internationally or if that's just in America, but you can reach out to their support team if you're having an issue with your crochet project, and they will help out. I have not tested this feature. I've seen other people on YouTube test it and they say it's good, but I can't, you know, vouch for that. But I think it's really nice that they offer it, because a lot of the time you'll buy a beginner's kit on some kind of activity and then you just find yourself thrown in the deep end with a piece of paper and no one to help guide you through it when you get stuck, because inevitably you're gonna find yourself stuck a little bit. It just happens. At least with the Woobles kit, they provide you with very clear and concise videos, as well as written instructions, as well as actual people you can reach out to if you need help. I mentioned before you end up with a whole bunch of extra materials. You can see I made Fred. He is exactly how he's supposed to be. He's got lots of stuffing in him. I did not understuff. If anything, I nearly overstuffed him. And I used heaps of like excess thread. Specifically when I was doing these spikes, I left very long pieces of thread off of them for the sake of sewing them onto him. Here is everything I have left. I have this much stuffing still in here. A pretty decent amount, not a lot, but after I've done all 4 kits, I think I'll have a substantial amount of stuffing left over. I have this much green yarn left over, which is actually a pretty substantial amount. It comes with 3 safety eyes, so I do have 1 left over in here, and I also have the yarn needle in here. I didn't even touch my black yarn. I have a bunch of leftover yellow from doing the spikes. I've got my crochet hook, and then of course I have all my cut off pieces as well. But in my opinion, that's a pretty substantial amount of leftover materials at the end of completing the project. So it does give you a lot of space if you did mess up, if you needed to do something separately, or it just leaves you with some extra materials at the end that you can use for something else one day. I'm not sure what, but I could potentially, once I finish all of these projects, make my own random multicolor Wooble based on a pattern that I've got from one of these projects, or a different pattern that I find online. It does give you a little bit of stuff to play around with at the end, which I think is really nice. It's also nice to know that they're not skimping out on materials and really pressing you to do it exactly right in order to not run out. I really appreciated that. So I do think these kits are really, really good if you've never crocheted before as an introductory point. They are incredibly accessible in terms of the instructions and the level of help they can provide if you need it, and also the ability to not use the help if you don't want it. I think that is equally important. I think the designs are simple enough but cute enough that they are worth making. You're not making something that's kind of ugly just because that's what the beginner kits are. I'm really excited to find a home for Fred. I'm not sure where he's gonna go yet. Probably on my bookcase. But these are, I think, a really nice size. They're kind of the size of like a pop vinyl figure, if that is of reference to you guys. They're not too big, but they're also not too small. He also stands up by himself, which I was really happy about when I finished him. They advertise on the back of the packaging that these should take between 3 to 8 hours to make. That is a very wide window of time, in my opinion. I can understand it though. If you're going stitch by stitch through all of the instructions constantly and you have to restart or you have to redo bits, then it's gonna take more time. If you already are comfortable with crochet stitches or you pick up the skill pretty quick, then you kind of just fly through a few rounds and it can go a bit faster. Obviously, you're not just gonna sit. Well, usually, you're not just going to sit and do the whole thing in one go. You could, I'm sure there are people who do, but I did this over the course of 3 days and I really enjoyed myself. I actually had such a blast making this. I was feeling so productive and so successful, and I love him. I think he's adorable. I'm excited to make him some friends. It is, you know, easy enough. But also I was reading some of the reviews on their website where people were saying it took them 1.5 years to make Fred. I'm not entirely sure how it could take that long, but maybe that's incredibly rude of me to assume that everyone has my capability. But I did go into this project as someone who has never crocheted before, but I have knitted before, so I guess maybe that added some basic understanding of how stitches work, even if I didn't know how to do them. I did it within 3 days. I also, you know, kind of got excited about it and got into it and was focusing on doing it for 3 days whenever I had free time. So that's also probably it. But that's another thing about these kinds of projects is you can leave them, you can put them down. They give you all these stitch markers in the kit so that you know where you're up to in your rounds, and I think that's really good. So you can just kind of put the project down and come back to it at a time when you can actually get through a bit more if you're finding yourself too busy. So I think overall the accessibility of the craft and the thoroughness of these kits is really, really well done. The one area where it kind of falls down for me is how expensive these kits are. I hesitate to recommend these at full price because full price here in New Zealand was $49 for this. That does feel like extortion. I ended up getting this for $24.50, considering the instructions that you get and the help that you get and all of the quality tools that you get. I think $24.50 is a great price point, but that is half price. That is quite literally half the price that they're asking for. I would not buy this full price. If you find them on sale, go for it. They're really fun, they're really well put together, but I wouldn't be saying go and get them at full price just because it is kind of a lot of money. It's kind of a lot of money. I don't know. It's a hard point because in a lot of ways I do think they are worth the price that they are just because they are such a well done introductory kit. You are left with some materials that you will keep at the end, and also you get the crochet hook and the yarn needle that you will use for the foreseeable future unless you decide to get a new one. There are parts of it that make it worth it because you're not really just paying for the materials, you're paying for the experience of doing it as well. Like if I paid $50 to go to a craft lesson and made this at a craft lesson and they were like, yeah, you get to take your crochet hook home, I would think that was well worth the money. This is a bit different because it's not a lesson, but they are providing me with that same kind of learning experience that you would get at an in-person craft session. So it is kind of a hard thing to judge. I think if you have the money to be spending on this kind of thing, sure, go for it. But if you're a little bit tighter on cash, it's not gonna be the best use of your money. You can buy the materials individually, and I'm sure there are some YouTube tutorials that someone else has put up that can help you create a project. They might not be as good. It's a really hard thing because, oh my gosh, the target market for this product is people who are new to the hobby. People who are new to the hobby tend to not have a lot of money to throw at it. At least not yet, because they aren't sure how invested they are. But people who are willing to throw a lot of money at this hobby already have the skills that all of the valuable teaching side of this teach you. So that whole part becomes redundant, which makes the kit really not worth it. If you know how to crochet, this is not the kit for you. Do not spend your money on this if you already know what you're doing. Just get your own pattern, get your own yarn. You know what you're doing. You don't need to spend this kind of money on a kit. If you don't know what you're doing, these are a really good quality kit. And it's, I guess, up to you to decide whether you want to spend the money on it. Like, there is something to be said for how well done the kits are. I think they're incredibly easy to follow. And I think anybody really could pick up one of these kits and be able to make a cute plush at the end of it. I just hate that there's kind of this monetary barrier in the way that I don't really know what to do with or how to get rid of it. It's just kind of hard to see. I don't want to say gatekeeping, because the idea behind these kits was to not gatekeep the craft. You know, they make it so easy to do for people that they're really trying to work against that kind of thinking. But they make it so expensive that they're almost doing it in a different way. This would make an amazing present, like a Christmas present or a birthday present for someone in your life who you think would be into crafting and might want to give this a go. It's a really good way to give crocheting as a gift because it is all inclusive, all cohesive, start to finish, here's everything you need. The literal only thing I needed to provide myself was scissors. And I guess technically my phone as a way to look at the instruction videos, but you can also do that on a laptop or anything else if you have a different device. It's a very good way to have everything you need for it right there in one bag. It's very approachable. It's not overwhelming and scary in any way, which I think is a testament to a good kit. A lot of craft kits are bad. And I do think it is worth noting that kind of the world of crafting kits, they are expensive. They're always overpriced. You're always spending more on the kit than you ever would on the individual pieces. That is the same for any single craft kit I've ever encountered in my life. Specifically the ones that just want you to paint on rocks. I saw one when I was out with my friend the other day. It was designed for kids and it was this little box of paint your own rocks and it was $30 for some crappy acrylic paint, which would have cost maybe $5, and some stones that you can get from outside. So when we look at it in the grand scheme of craft kits, I don't think this one is terribly priced compared to how other things are marked up. So that's why I think it makes a good gift, but it is still expensive. Whether it's cheap for a craft kit or not, or well priced for a craft kit or not, it is still just expensive in general, and I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that it's not. If you get them like I did, where they're half off somewhere or some other sale, then sure, then I think it's a great deal. But they are expensive for what they are, even though what they are is really good. It's a hard one. I'm not really sure what to tell you here. Do I recommend them? Yes, but I almost don't at the same time. I think I've made my feelings on these kits pretty clear. I think the kits themselves are amazing. I think the price sucks, and that's an unfortunate kind of take to have, because the price is the barrier point to having the kit. I do have these four. I do think they're cute. I will make them all and I will enjoy my time doing so, but I don't know if I'll ever purchase anything else from the Woobles. Unless I find some extreme sale or something like that, I think I'll just use the skills that I learned and the crochet hooks that I've got to make my own projects using materials that I can purchase myself, if I even keep making crochet projects after this. I think if you just want to try out crocheting as a one-off, it's probably a great way because it gives you all of the things you need to do so. I don't know, man, they're just pretty expensive. But yeah, that's kind of a sour note to leave off on, but it's the reality of these. They're expensive and it annoys me. But yes, have you guys ever used a Woobles kit or a crochet kit of any kind? Or have you had any experiences with craft activity kits that you'd like to share with me? Please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you guys and have a bit of a discussion about it down below. And also let me know if you think Fred is just the cutest little dinosaur that you have ever seen in your life, because he is. Thank you for noticing. Otherwise, that's it for me for today's video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. It does really help out the channel. And I hope to see you all next time in my next video. Love you all so much and goodbye.